Yes, hello. Welcome back to the team lists for round 13 this week. Now, with State of Origin, I've already done the Origin team lists and my preview of that game. So that was last week. Whether you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts listening to this podcast, you can just flick through a few episodes ago. It was last week around Monday or Tuesday. I did an Origin preview where I've gone through the Origin 1 team lists as well and analysed the sides. So you can give that a listen if you want. But for this episode, I'm just going to go strictly with the NRL sides for round 13, which kicks off on Friday night at Ocean Protect Stadium at 8 p.m. in Sydney between the Cronulla Sharks and the Manly Sea Eagles. Let's go through the lineups now for the first game of round 13. At fullback, Will Kennedy. The two wingers are Sam Stonestreet and Ronaldo Mulatalo. The two centres are Jesse Ramian and KL Iro. The halves are Braden Trindle and Niwe Puru. Of course, no Nico Hines with a calf injury, expected to be out for minimum a week. Aden Fanua Blake up front alongside Toby Rudolph and Blake Brayley named at dummy half. The back rowers are Britton Nakora, Teague Wilton and Cameron McInnes locking the scrum. The bench is Jesse Colhoun, Sifa Talakai, Billy Burns, Thomas Hazleton, Hohepa Puru and Oregon Kafusi in the 19. The 20 is Braden Hamlin-Ueli. 21 is Jaden Beryl, the hooker there. Riley Jones is the 22 and the 23 is the outside back Mawene Hiroti. So that is how Cronulla line up. Nico Hines is a big loss, of course, but for the Manly Sea Eagles at fullback, Clayton Faulolo. The two wingers are Jason Saab and Lehigh Hopewadi. In the centres is Josh Fellerty and Ruben Garrick. The halves are Luke Brooks and Jamal Fogarty. Up front, Taniela Paseka, Jake Simpkin and Kobe Hetherington. The back rowers are Jackson Sherab, Ben Travojevic in the 12 and the 13 is Jake Travojevic. Now, Ben Travojevic has been named here. He will not play. So he had an HIA last week, a Category 1, so he won't play in this game. So Brandon Wakeham on the bench, Nathan Brown, Ethan Bullimore, Simeone Lafai, Blake Wilson and Joey Walsh make up the six-man bench. The 20 is Hugo Hart, 21 is Haumole Olakuatu and the 22 is Tolatau Kola. So for me, Jackson Shearer will start in the back row. Haumole Olakuatu will most likely play if he gets through Origin, and he may be on the other edge. Actually, no, Shearer will play where Benny Travojevic plays, and Haumole will come on. Tolatau Kola will come on for Josh Fellerty if he gets through Origin okay. That's how Manly line up. Now, the first game on Super Saturday is between the Knights and the Parramatta Eels. You'll catch this at 3 p.m. at McDonald Jones Stadium. The Newcastle Knights line up like this. At fullback is Kalen Ponga. The two wingers are Dominic Young and Greg Marzu. The centres are Dane Gagai and Fletcher Sharp in the centres this week. No Bradman Best, of course, with an injury. The halves are Sandon Smith and Dylan Brown. Up front, Jacob Saifidi, Phoenix Crossland at dummy half and Trey Mooney up front, been one of the best front rowers, if I may say so, in season 2026 so far. The back rowers are Dylan Lucas, Jermaine McEwen, and locking the scrum is Matthew Croker. The benches Harrison Graham, Tyson Frizzell, Pasami Solo, Cody Hopwood, Thomas Cant, and Fletcher Hunt makes up the six-man bench there. The 20 is Francis Manu Leilua and James Schiller and Elijah Leimoana. Kyle McCarthy make up the 20 to 23 there. For the Parramatta Eels at fullback, welcome back to Isaiah Iongi. He's been out for an extended period of time, and I'm sure Parramatta are very happy to have him back into the football side. The two wingers are Brian Kelly and Josh Adokar. The centres are Jordan Samrani and Sean Russell. The halves are Joash Papali'i and Ronald Vogtman in the number 7. Of course, no Mitch Moses. He's out for Origin as well with a hamstring complaint. Luca Moretti, Talon De Silva and Jack Williams. Kelma Talangi and Katoni Katoga are the back rowers, and the lock is Jack DeBellin. Good to see him starting in the 13 jersey where he belongs. Dylan Walker plays his best football off the bench, and that's where he will be in the number 14 jersey this game. Charlie Geimer, Tony Mattelli, Harrison Edwards, Upper, Twiddle, and Team Cum Brown make up the six-man bench with Sam Tuavati. The 21, Lorenzo Talatena and Araz Nanva make the 20 to 22 there. The second game, Super Saturday, the Tigers versus the Bulldogs. You'll catch this at Combank Stadium at 5:30 p.m. on Fox League and KO Sports. For the Tigers at fullback, Jareen Buller. The two wingers, Jarrell Skelton back into the side, and for Latino Tavana. The centres at Sunia Taruva and Heimasi Makasini back into the centres as well. Jerome Luai and Jock Madden make up the halves. Of course, no Adam Dewey. Terrell May, Apisai Coruscant plays his first game in 4 weeks of football. Fanua Pole back into the starting front row, I should say. The back rowers, Sione Fanu, Kai Pierce Paul, and the lock is Alex Twell, who in my opinion has been the Tigers' best player this year. On the bench, the 14, Latu Fanu, 15, Alex Seyfarth, the 16 is Royce Hunt, and the 17 is Charlie Murray. The 18 is Maverick Geyer, the 19 is Stafford Toa, the 20 is Tristan Hope, the 21 Ethan Roberts, and the 22 Heath Mason. For the Canterbury Bulldogs at fullback, Jacob Carraz. Congratulations to him, retaining his spot at fullback in this game after last week's amazing performance against the Melbourne Storm. The two wingers, Jethro Rinakama and Marcelo Montoya. The centres are Bronson Sherry and Anari Tawala. The halves are Matt Burton and Lachlan Galvin. Up front, Max King, Kurt Mann starting at dummy half once again, and the 10 is Leo Thompson. The back rowers, Tilly Tupanua, who was fantastic last week. The 12 is Jamin Salmon and Harry Hayes in the 13. I love that from Canterbury. The 14, Bailey Hayward. Jed Reardon at 15. 16, Jack Underhill. 17, Josh Curran back into the football side. The 19 is Lipoi Hopoi. The 20 is Jonathan Sewer. And the 21 is Sean O'Sullivan. 22, Connor Tracy, returning from a hamstring complaint. The 23 is Stephen Crichton. Expect Crichton to be named in the centres in this game, basically because they have to, it's desperate times for Canterbury. They have to get wins on the board to have any chance of making the finals. If he gets through Origin, which I assume he will, then he will play for the Canterbury Bulldogs in this game. The third game on Super Saturday is between the Melbourne Storm and the Sydney Roosters at Amy Park, 7:35 p.m. At fullback for Melbourne, Suafar Lago. The two wingers are Will Warbrick and Moses Leo. The centres are Jack Howarth and Nick Meaney. The halves, Cameron Munster and Jerome Hughes. Up front, Stefano Utoi Kamanu. Harry Grant is the number 9, and the 10 is Josh King. The back rowers, Alec McDonald, Atavalu, Lasati, and Trent Loiero locking the scrum if he gets through Origin. 14 is Trent Talau, 15 Cooper Clark, 16 Davey Mawali, and the 17 is Josiah Pahulu. The 18 is Joe Chan. The 19 is Manaya Watari, and the 20 is Jack Hetherington. The 21 is Angus Hinchy. The 22 is Gabrielle Satrick, and Keegan Russell Smith is the 23 for the Melbourne Storm. For the Sydney Roosters, assuming that these Origin players back up, the fullback is James Tedesco. He'll be named, he's named. He will play there if he gets through it. The two wingers, Billy Smith on the wing, and Cody Ramsey on the other sting there. No Daniel Tupou in this game. The centres, Hugo Savala and Robert Toya. The halves, Sam Walker and Daly Cherry Evans. Nafahu White, Reece Robson, and Lindsay Collins make up the front row, and the hooker. The back rowers, Angus Crichton, Siwa Wong, and Victor Radley locking the scrum, of course, named on the bench for New South Wales as well. The bench for the Roosters, the 14, Connor Watson, Spencer Lenu, Nat Butcher, Celesi Fiketti, Reece Foley, and Egan Butcher make up the 6-man bench there. They haven't named the reserves yet so far, so we'll have a look there later on in the week. The Sunday game is at 2 p.m. between the Brisbane Broncos and the St. George Illawarra Dragons at Suncorp Stadium. This is going to be a hard game for the Dragons to win. At fullback for the Broncos, Reece Walsh. The two wingers, Josiah Karapani and Jesse Arthurs. The centres are Katoni Staggs and Gemmet Shibasaki. The halves are Ezra Mam and Adam Reynolds. Up front, Preston Ricky, Corey Pakes, hooker, and of course Payne Haas returning in his first game in around 6 weeks of NRL. 11 is Brendan Piakura, 12 is Xavier Willison, and the 13 is the co-captain Patrick. Well, he's not actually the co-captain, but when Adam Reynolds is injured, which is normally half the year, Patrick Carrigan comes in. I look at him as the co-captain anyway. He is the future captain of the club, Patrick Carrigan. The 14 is Ben Hunt. The 15 is Ben Tolte. The 16 is Vas Semu. 17, Jack Gajewski. The 18 is Grant Anderson, and the 19 is Hayes Perham. Now, the 20 to 24. The 20 is Thomas Duffy, the good backup half there, the young kid coming through. The 21 is Jaden Hunt. Philip Coates is the 22. Olblix Tafa is the 23, who they bought from the Dolphins, and the 24 is Josh Rogers, the dummy half there. All right, for the Dragons at fullback, Clint Gutherson. The two wingers, Setu Tu and Matthew Fingai. The centres at Moses Sully back into the side this week, which is good to see, alongside Valentine Holmes. The halves are Daniel Atkinson and Kyle Flanagan. Up front, Loco Junior, Pacifica Tonga. Damien Cook in the middle. defending in the middle there at dummy half, and Toby Couchman is the front rower there in the 10 jersey. The back rowers Dylan Egan, Hamish Stewart and Ryan Couchman locking the scrum. The bench is Jacob Little, Blake Laurie, Josh Kerr, Luciano Leilua, and the 18 is Emre Gula alongside the 19 is Lincoln King Tongia, and the 20 Tyrell Sloan, 21 Isaiah Fagalio, and the 22 is Tyler Peckham Harris. That's how the Dragons line up. All right, the next game Sunday, May 31st, between the Raiders and the North Queensland Cowboys at GIO Stadium. Another game for the Canberra Raiders. They will want to win this one at 4:05 p.m. The Raiders at fullback Koyo Weeks. The two wingers Savelio Tamale and Xavier Savage. The centres are Sebastian Chris and Matthew Tomoko. The halves are Ethan Strange and Ethan Sanders. Up front, Corey Horsburgh and Joe Tarpanay are the front rowers. The hooker is Tom Starling. The back rowers are Hudson Young, Zach Hosking, and the lock forward, believe it or not, is Dane Laurie. I love that. On the bench is Owen Paddy, Atamariota, Morgan Smithies, Jed Stewart, Chevy Stewart. 19 is Jordan Uta. They make up the six-man bench. And the 20 is Kobe Black, the young halfback that they've bought from the Brisbane Broncos. The 21 is Vina Patuki Case. And the 22 is Ethan Alea. For the Cowboys at fullback, Scott Drinkwater. The two wingers, Zach Laybutt and Murray Talangi. The centres are Jackson Purdue and Thomas Chester. The halves are Liam Sutton, who's done a great job since making his debut 2 weeks ago, and Jake Clifford. Tom McKaylee, Reid Marnie, hooker, and Jason Tamalolo. Up front, the back rowers are Helam Lukey, Sam McIntyre, and Ruben Cotter. If he gets through Origin, he will be locking the scrum for the North Queensland Cowboys on Sunday afternoon. The 14 is Viliami Vailea, the 15 is Griffin Neems, 16 Matthew Lodge, and the 17 is Cohen Hess. Robert Derby is the 18, the 19 is Ethan King, Xavier Kerisk, the young hooker who got a go recently. Congratulations to him. He's the 20, the 21 is Wiramu Greg, and the 22 is the young outside back there, Mason Barber, who of course we saw in the preseason challenge. The final game of the round, Penrith versus the Warriors at Combank Stadium, 6:15 p.m. Let's have a look at Penrith at fullback, Dylan Edwards. The two wingers, Thomas Jenkins and Paul Alamotti. The centres are Isaac Tango and Luke Garner. The halves are Blaze Talangi and Jack Cogger. Up front is Moses Leota, Freddie Lussick and Liam Henry. The back rowers, Isaiah Papali'i, Liam Martin returning from injury, and the lock forward here is Lindsay Smith. The 14, Jack Cole, 15, Scott Sorensen, 16, Billy Phillips. The Luron Pateo, 17. 18 is Billy Scott. 19 is Sione Fanua. The 20 is Kalani Going. He's around 29 years old. He's locked forward that they bought from the Warriors, who I really rate, actually. Casey McLean, or should I say Casey McGuire? It's the 21, the 20. Sorry, I shouldn't find that so funny. The 22 is Isaiah Yo. Nathan Cleary is the 23, and the 24, Brian To'o. In my opinion, the Origin players will not play in this game. So you've got the 22 Isaiah Yo, the 23 Nathan Cleary, the 24 Brian To'o. Why play them? We normally see over the years Ivan Cleary rest them as much as he possibly can through that Origin period so that they're backfiring. They've played a lot of football in the opening 3 months of this competition. I think the smart thing to do, considering where they are positioned and how they are travelling and how the club backs their youngsters coming through the ranks, is to sit them out. I can't see them playing. That's just my prediction. For the Warriors at fullback, Tane Tuapiki doing a great job for them. The two wingers, it's Dallin Wateni Zalesniak and Alofi Khan Pereira. The centres, Ali Leatua and Adam Pompey. The halves, Chanel Harris Tavita and T. Murray Martin, which I love to see him starting at halfback again. Up front, James Fisher Harris, Wade Egan and Jackson Ford in the 10. The back rowers, Aleka Halasima, Jacob Laban, and the 13 locking the scrum is Aaron Clark. The 14 is Sam Healy. The 15 is Tanner Stowers Smith. The 16 is Dimitri Valmaga. The 17, the back rower Marata Niakore, and Kalis Fatia Lofa is the 18. I want to see more of this kid. Apparently he's an absolute gun. The 20, Luke Hanson, the young half that they bought there from the Newcastle Knights, I'm pretty sure. Mackay Tafua is the 21. The 22 is Luke Metcalf, and Jason Siu